YouTube? It's your girl DeeDee. Welcome back to the channel. So I'm back with another reaction video. Now, earlier, I spoke about, in a previous live, I spoke about Black women losing jobs. Has become an issue in the workforce, and the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics are talking about these numbers and how this is going to have an impact on the labor force. So I want to play this news article and give my thoughts on this, and I want to get your responses to this. So I want to know your thoughts on this. I want to get your feedback. Make sure you chime in the comments below. Comment, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that bell to be notified when I upload new content. Let's go ahead and get into to what they're saying. Here we go.
To the economy now, where staggering numbers have been released surrounding Black women in the labor force. A new report shows more than 300,000 Black women have left the workforce in just the last several months. That's according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Joining me now is gender economist Katika Roy to break this all down and why they're leaving. Katika, thank you so much for being with us. You recently wrote an article where you say that this isn't happening by accident. Why do you think it is happening?
This is happening because of cuts to public sector positions. So if you look at the federal labor force, Black women make up just over 12% of the federal labor force. It's about double their representation in the labor force overall. And when you have targeted cuts up to 50% in organizations such as the Department of Education and HHS, you're not just trimming the fat, you're actually cutting the economic backbone for Black women.
Now, we've heard this and we've kind of briefly talked about it, how a lot of these women are losing their jobs. Some women even claim that they've been able to find other jobs online. A lot of these cuts are due to DEI practices is what they're saying as well. They're addressing how this could impact economic society, the economic society, because a lot of these individuals are out of work. It's interesting. It's interesting on one hand that they're talking about this and they're focused on Black women losing their jobs because they think it'll have a major impact on our society because of that. But Black women aren't the only ones who lost jobs. Now, let's be honest. There are a lot of other individuals who lost jobs as well. But I think when you talk about when this type of thing happens, because, you know, Black women, Black men are kind of at the bottom. And so when something like this happens, it dramatically affects Black people in our society. And because the focus is always on Black women, and Black women were the ones in these DEI positions, the small percentage of DEI positions that were held, a lot of Black women were in there. It wasn't a whole bunch of Black men in corporate America. So it affects Black women at a higher rate. So I think the focus is what they're saying is, hey, this is going to have a dramatic effect on the economy when it comes to Black individuals, Black women, because the majority of them will be out of work. So how is this going to look? Let's continue.
Wow. And so what are some of the spillover effects from all of this?
Well, one of the things that we know is that there is a connection between women's labor force participation and GDP. So just Black women's labor force participation has dropped by just over 2% in the last 3 months. And that has sucked over $37 billion out of US GDP. So this is the economic cost of gender policy ignorance.
This is really fascinating because do you think that most people are unaware of the actual impacts of things like this?
Absolutely. So when we often think about women's issues or Black women's issues, we think of it as an over there problem. It's not. It's an everybody problem. When our economy grows, that has more jobs and more income for everyone. So we know, for instance, overall, that for every 1 percentage point that women leave the labor force, there's a $146 billion hit to GDP.
Oh my gosh. And so we've talked about the consequences, but is there an upside to all of this? Are we seeing women pivoting to entrepreneurship as they're leaving the workforce? What then are they doing?
You know, that's a great question. And the truth is, we don't know where all of the 300,000 Black women that have actually been pushed out of the labor force have gone. We know that some of them have gone into entrepreneurship, which is not only because of luxury, but it's actually because of survival. And this is really a testament to their resilience, but it also shows the rigidity in our traditional employment systems.
And I think too, and I've heard that as well, they're just finding other jobs, maybe not in their fields, but they're able to find jobs online, work from home jobs. They're able to find jobs from what I'm gathering. I just think I guess they're trying to show the contrast between the effects, shall I say, of all of these women being forced out of the labor force, forced out of work, because a lot of these women didn't leave the jobs, they were forced out. Okay. So they were let go. They didn't just choose to leave, they were let go. And it's interesting how they say, oh, all these women are leaving the workforce. From what I'm gathering, they're not leaving the workforce. They were forced out of those job titles. Now, what they don't really specify is the type of jobs. We know we hear corporate America, but we don't really hear specifically what jobs are being taken away. Because I remember earlier on when this first started, they were talking about jobs that some of these jobs were created for a specific task or whatever. Some of these jobs were not long-term jobs. These were like temporary jobs that they hired women in, and then these jobs were set to expire at some point. So that's what I was hearing earlier on, but now they're not really specifying what types of jobs are leaving. Were these temporary positions? Some of these jobs were, or exactly what type of fields are these women being laid off from? So I want to play a little bit more of what they had to say, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Here we go.
Are there any other groups that we are seeing largely impacted in this way in the labor workforce?
Not to this extent. So I track all of the data, as you can imagine, month over month by gender and race and ethnicity. And I started to see this trend about 3 months ago with this really precipitous drop in Black women out of the labor force. And this is a huge hit. And historically, just to give you a sense of the historical context, this is the first time in years that Black women's labor force participation has fallen below Latinas' labor force participation.
Wow. It's really fascinating to see these numbers, to hear you explain all of it and break down the real world impacts on our GDP and the economy at large. Katika Roy, thank you for what you do, and thanks for being with us.
So what do you guys think about this? Because once again, I've seen women who have lost their jobs, where some of them were able to find other jobs relatively quickly, while others may still struggle in that area to find jobs in their fields. How is this affecting the economy in a negative way? And how does this affect the GDP, from what she's saying? And how is it just the look of it, or does it have a major impact on society and the growth of society? I want to know, and I'm asking this question to anybody watching, what's the significance of this 300,000 Black women losing jobs? And I know that's a lot of women in the Black community, but what's the negative impact on it? And I know she mentioned the GDP once again, but what's the overall impact on these women losing jobs, other than they might lose money out of their pockets? And once again, they're not the only one losing jobs, but it's more of a significant amount of Black women than any other groups. So I mean, what does that say? What do you think that means to society? And how should Black women be responding to this? So I want to hear your thoughts. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. Comment, like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will catch you in the next one. Bye.